Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. My name is Hannah Crapo. I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at Certiport. We're happy to have everyone joining us for our third Certified Academy webinar of 2025. Now, we've already had some people joining us before the top of the hour. If you haven't, just go ahead and drop into the chat. Let us know what you're hoping to learn from today's session and where you're joining from so that we can all get to know each other a little bit better. This session is being recorded, so we'll be sending out a link to the full recording via email after our presentation has wrapped today. All of our attendees are currently muted, so if you have questions for our panelists, feel free to drop those either into the chat or the Q&A feature, and we'll make sure to address those as we finish up our panel discussion today. Before we dive in, I did just want to give a quick shout out to our session sponsor, the Microsoft Office Specialist Certification Program. With over 3.9 million US jobs every year requesting Microsoft Office skills, those who take and pass the MOS certifications are empowered to stand out in a competitive job market while simplifying daily tasks and fostering career growth. So we're hoping that you're excited to learn a little bit more about this program, and we'll drop some links here into the chat shortly for those who are interested in learning a little bit more. Today, we're going to be talking about women leading in the digital age, and I'm so excited for our wonderful panelists and women in technology who are going to be sharing their expertise with us today. First, we have Ashlyn DeMa. Ashlyn is a senior at Cornell University studying chemical engineering with a concentration in fiber science. She's passionate about the intersection of STEM and design, or the combination of technicality and creativity. Following her graduation this May, she'll be working as a management consultant with Goral Group, guiding pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies through their product lifecycle and business challenges. And second, we have with us a return guest who's been with us before, Miss Ashley Masters. Ashley has worked at Microsoft for nearly 5 years and is currently focused on driving Copilot adoption for business users by meeting them where they are on Instagram and LinkedIn. She's completed her MBA in finance at WSU in 2023 and her undergraduate degree in finance and economics in 2020 from Central Washington University. So I'm going to go ahead and just stop sharing so that we can see everyone. Wonderful. We're so happy to have both of these incredible panelists with us. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and give them a chance to introduce themselves as well. Ashlyn, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Yes, as was said in the summary, my name is Ashlyn. I'm a senior at Cornell University and I'm studying chemical engineering. And I first got involved in the technology field because I really enjoyed just the STEM fields in general in high school. And I was fortunate enough to have a Microsoft certification class at my high school. And then I got involved in the Microsoft Specialist Championships. And I've just used those skills throughout my time here in engineering at Cornell. And I anticipate using them a lot in my future career as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ashlyn. Ashley, we'll come to you next.
Awesome. Ashley Masters Hall, or many of you, if you've seen me before, might know me as Ashley Masters. I grew up in Southwest Washington, where I really got introduced into the Microsoft certification and MOS world. I competed in the national championships, both with the Microsoft competition, the MOS competition, as well as Future Business Leaders of America. I am currently at Microsoft, have been there for nearly 5 years. I started straight out of college. And I've been telling this story a little bit more recently, but my experience with technology really began when I was about 3. My dad told me this story, how he found me one day. It was early in the morning. He couldn't find me in the house. He finally walked into the computer room and found me sitting at a computer teaching my baby dolls Microsoft Word. And if you know anything about my story, that is very fitting and telling. And so I've been sharing that lately. So thanks for having me, Hannah.
Love that it goes back that far. I haven't heard that one yet, so I'm excited that we're starting from the very grassroots, and I know we're going to have some awesome stories to be able to share about your experience with technology today. Ashley, we'll start with you. How did you first get involved in certification, and what certifications have you earned throughout your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got involved with certification as a freshman in high school. We had a class, I think at the time it was called DigiTools. It was a required class by freshmen, and everybody took this class as a freshman, and I ended up falling in love with the class, and I think I joined the class every year for like the next 2 or 3 years. And the premise of the class was really just teaching us how to use Microsoft products and really getting us plugged into the technology realm. I remember that it was maybe the first week of class, and my teacher, who you'll probably hear me talk about a lot, Mrs. Schmidt or Kathy Schmidt, asked us if we who wanted to take a free trip to Florida. And surprisingly, I was like one of the only people who was like, hi, me, I want to go. And that started me diving into certification. I took those exams. I fell in love with taking exams, which is not normal for someone like me who didn't typically like taking tests. But I loved taking this exam and really learning about different Microsoft products and how I can use those tools to be more efficient in my job and in my high school education. At this point, I think I have maybe 15 plus certifications. A couple of those are repeats, like I've got a Microsoft Word 2013, 16, and 23 at this point. So I have all the Microsoft Suite certifications and recently got my AZ900 certification, which is a bit more of a technical certification, but I would not have felt confident in taking that had I not been taking my Microsoft certification courses prior to that. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay, I'm going to ask kind of a sub question and then Ashton will come over to you after. How do you feel like these certifications actually have impacted you in your career?
In every way humanly possible. I can 1000% confidently say that without certification, I would not be where I am today. And I certainly would not have traveled the United States as a teenager. And I wouldn't have started my Microsoft career as a full-time employee at the age of 19 without even having had an internship with Microsoft. Um, Certifications set me apart in a very unique way from anyone that I was interviewing against, but also just with the people who were interviewing me, being able to ask me questions about certification and how that impacted me. Not only did I have that certification that set me apart, but it just gave me this confidence. I was like, yeah, everyone says they know how to use Word. Everyone says they know how to use Excel and PowerPoint, but I could sit here and prove it. I had a industry certification saying I know how to use these products, and that just gave me a lot of confidence.
I love that. That's amazing. Ashlyn, we'll come to you next. You've touched briefly on how you got involved in certification at your high school. Tell us a little bit more about that process and what certifications you've earned so far.
Yeah, so it's pretty similar to Ashley. I got involved in my freshman year of high school as well. I think they just offered a class on like Word and PowerPoint, and I saw it on the class roster and I thought it was interesting. There was no like particular reason why I thought I wanted to take it because I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my career at that point, but I thought it was a good skill to have regardless. So I remember taking the test and learning the skills and going through the program and just being like really amazed and kind of satisfied at how efficient I could be in those programs once I learned those skills. It's just like something very rewarding about being able to execute a task really easily like that, and knowing the ins and outs of the programs. And so I think I was doing practice exams and I did really well in one. And so my instructor came up and was like, oh, you should look at these Microsoft competitions they have. And so she got me involved in those, which was a whole another amazing experience, especially early on in high school, when again, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with myself. I didn't really have like the confidence to start exploring a new area like that because I had never been really in the tech field before. But yeah, so it was a really formative part of my high school career and gave me a lot of confidence moving forward. And then specific with certifications, I believe I'm certified in Word 2013, 2016, Word Expert, PowerPoint 2013 and 2016, all from that class in high school. So just like the one class, which was really great. So yeah.
So building on that a little bit, how do you feel like these certifications have impacted you as you've gone through your experience at Cornell?
Yeah, very similar to what Ashley said as well. I feel like they've helped me kind of like support the rest of my career. So not necessarily has there been a time where I've been like, oh, I have this certification and it's giving me a concrete edge over someone else. Like they see it on my application and they're like, definitely this person over this person. But I feel like it's helped support every other aspect of what I've had to do. So a lot of my courses, especially in chemical engineering, have a lot of very technical data analysis. And even though I didn't technically get certified in Excel back in high school, the skills are transferable. So I did learn Excel pretty easily and pretty quickly on the spot. And so as I go through my classes where I have to work with like huge data sets and these really complex equations, it's so much easier to go into Excel and type in like a formula or like program a spreadsheet to solve it a certain way than to like hand calculate everything. And kind of in the same vein, another really important aspect of most careers is like technical communication of your ideas. So it's one thing to really know how to execute them and do the calculations correctly. But if you can't convey that information in a really digestible and approachable way to people, you're not really going to get far. So I think like especially throughout my engineering coursework, and I've TA'd a few classes as well where I have to do that technical communication. My PowerPoint skills have really come to the front, where I like have had moments where I've been in a group project or something creating a PowerPoint with someone, and they've been like, wow, you're like strangely good at this. And I'm like, you have no idea. But yeah, it's just like supports every aspect of my academic career.
I love that. I think that's awesome. I love that you're strangely good at it. It's definitely as pervasive as it is, right? As of a tool that people use. I'm always shocked at how little familiarity some people have, right, with this type of technology. And so having that kind of leg up, like you've both mentioned, is so powerful. And I wanted to come back to you, Ashley, thinking about, I mean, you work at Microsoft, so that's a really unique setting to be able to have this discussion. How do you feel like your certifications have helped you in the job role that you have right now?
Yeah, for sure. I think coming into a corporate job not having certification is kind of more so the question to answer here of like, had I not spent time in high school intentionally studying and preparing for this certification through Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, I think that I would come into corporate world just so lost. Not only do I know how to use all the tools, but I know how to figure out a problem and an answer to something that maybe isn't sitting there screaming at me, right? When you're preparing for these exams, you're thinking about where would this question logically be solved for in the ribbon, right? And you're like, oh, that would probably be in the view tab. Those types of skills I don't think are talked about often enough when you're preparing for certification. We tend to focus on the surface level of like, how do you use the products? But it teaches you a different level of problem solving that I think that's a huge component that I've been able to take into my corporate job and my career to say, I know that I can figure things out. It might take me a couple minutes, but I've experienced that and I've been successful in that. So what's to say I can't do that now, whether it's in a product or if it's in just general work problems and whatnot. So I would also say in terms of like impacting my career at Microsoft, because I was so um, because certification impacted my life so much when I was in college, I also started like my own mini certification program. And that is like the key indicator of what got me hired in my interview. I was like talking to my interviewer about that, and that was really what blew him away. Aside from the certification, he was like, "This is great." And then because I was so passionate about that, that really gave me that extra leg up in my interview process as well.
Mm. Oh, I love that. I think that's so special. And I remember having you come back, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and speaking to other students at the Microsoft competition. So we'll talk a little bit more about your experience with that as well. Ashlyn, you've been through kind of this interview process, I think, more recently than Ashley or myself. How do you feel like certification helped you in pursuing your future job role and also in academics?
Yeah, so I kind of touched on the academic part already, but I feel like I want to recall this like one specific example. So last semester in my chemical engineering lab course, it's like basically the big bad course you have to take at the end of your 4 years. It's not, no one looks forward to it, but we had this final lab report due at the very end of the semester where you have to essentially model a set of reactor systems. And there's like a bunch of equations that go into calculating like the concentrations of certain things in each system. And I remember everyone was struggling so hard. And I mean, I was too. And just like the number of hand calculations you have to do is crazy. But I had the idea of putting it into Excel and making it like an auto calculator. And it made my workload like 40 times less. And I remember sharing it with my group mates and they were like elated and so happy. So I just feel like, kind of like Ashley said, even though I didn't get certified in Excel necessarily, those skills are very transferable and it was able to help me just like make my life easier in pretty much every aspect. And I think that's been like pretty prevalent throughout my academic careers. Everything is just a little more efficient, a little easier when you have these types of skills. And then specific to the job search, yes, I have had to search for a job for the past few months and it has been a long process, but I am very happy with the job that I have lined up. And I do genuinely believe that my certifications helped me get that. So the job that I am currently going to move into in the summer, the third round of interviews had one specific like assignment where you basically got a giant data set with information about a specific like problem you had to solve, and then you had to create a PowerPoint presentation to summarize your findings. And I remember working through the data set late at night on my winter break, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, thank God I know Excel, because there's no way I'd be able to address these like thousands of rows of information without those skills. And then when I was creating the PowerPoint, I was using features like the smart art and things like that to make sure that my technical communication of those ideas was also really clear. And I got really positive feedback on my presentation and the way that I used like animations and other PowerPoint features in that communication. And I remember they talked about that, and they were like, oh, so you know how to use Microsoft, you know how to use Word and PowerPoint. And I was like, yes, but I'm like really good at it, and you guys should keep this in mind when you think about my application moving forward. So again, I really feel like it supports every aspect of my academic career. And in that specific instance, I did get to kind of explicitly talk about my certifications, which was nice, but it was a big part of why I think I was able to land that job role.
I love that you've both talked about kind of non-obvious benefits of certification. I mean, both of you have had wonderful experiences of being able to say in a job interview, yes, I'm certified and this is, the things that I can do. But I think being able to touch on, I just have written down as you've been speaking, two of those non-obvious benefits of communication and certification, being able to technically communicate and demonstrate your knowledge and ideas, and then problem solving. I think those are two skill sets that we don't often talk about as it relates to certification, and some of those benefits, those soft skills, right, um, are just not obvious, but always so pervasive and important. So I wanted to go back to thinking about kind of the certification ecosystem. One of the things that we're so privileged to be able to do every year here at Certiport is host the Microsoft Office Specialist Championship Program with students from across the country and then from across the world as well. And I know both of you competed in that event. So Ashlyn, I wanted to come to you first. What was it like to compete in the MOS Championship?
It was honestly like a really, really formative, amazing and experience I'll never forget. Because I did it pretty early in high school. I think it was like freshman or sophomore years when I started to get involved. And once again, I like didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life at that point. I didn't have the most like confidence in my future career. And so going into a field like that with little to no pre-existing knowledge, about having the support of my instructor and my classmates was just like a really good experience that showed me the rewards of hard work. Because truly, like I was going in with nothing, and I was kind of like, okay, I'll just practice for this long. I'll really like commit to it. And I was able to really explicitly see the rewards of that hard work and determination, which I think taught me that it's kind of cheesy, but you can do whatever you want to do, even if you think you're unfamiliar in that space, which was really, really important for me to learn early on, because I used that lesson in future parts of my career. And then also just being surrounded by such a community of people who had like a similar passion to me, but also had like really varying interests was really helpful, because it shows you like the value of these kind of softer skills that you've learned, and how you can do anything you want with them. And you don't have to restrict yourself to one specific like niche area. Even if you're really good at the MOS certifications, you don't have to just do that. You can apply it to, a million other parts of your life.
I really like that because I think our topic today is fairly broad, right? Women in the digital age and women in technology. But I think that means so many different things. And you guys are both great examples of that, that we have chemical engineering and then we have the business side of things. There's so many different ways to approach technology. And this era that we're in with artificial intelligence, there's just so many different avenues that are available. So I love that the skills are transferable regardless of the career path that we're choosing. Ashley, let's come to you and talk about your experience at the Moss Championship. What are your thoughts?
Yes, I wish I could go back and compete again because it was just such a fun event, from just the networking opportunities and just the environment being in the championships. Like, everybody is so really sweetly nervous, as as an ambassador, getting to experience that from, I'm not competing, I just get to encourage everyone. And then just watching them light up at the end, right? We go from like, you see everybody's confidence soar the second they walk out of that room. They're like, I did it. I finished it. The energy is so inspiring. Everybody there that has competed just has this confidence and energy that you want to take with you everywhere that you go. And so genuinely, I wish I could go back every single year because whether it's a competitor or as just like a people watcher, because it is genuinely one of the most inspiring events that I've ever taken place in. As a competitor in the event, I remember, I'm pretty sure when I was competing at the FBLA version of MOS, so it was still the same exam, still the same type of concept, but it was through Future Business Leaders of America. I remember, and Hannah, you probably remember this as well. It was my first time, and I walked in, took my exam, and I walked out crying because I was just like so many emotions. I was relieved to be done, but also nervous. Like, did I do my best? And I did. I won that national competition. But just getting that opportunity and then the networking. I think that's another like unspoken benefit of the certification world and the national championship is that network. A lot of people in my network are from the competition and certification world. I work with people today in my job at Microsoft. I actually work with a lot of the people who partner with the MOS championship and even people who I met at the World Championship and at the National Championship, I still connect with them today. One of them works at Microsoft now, and I continue to talk with him. So there's really big benefit to that networking opportunity that's found in the certification world and championship world.
I like that. And the idea of networking, I think, feeds in really well to what we wanted to talk about next. Certification in education, I think, is so important, but a lot of it depends on the infrastructure and the people that really execute that and make that happen. So mentors and colleagues really play such a huge role in your success. So I wanted to think about the women that have been influential in your journey to pursue a career in technology. So Ashley, we'll come to you first in thinking about some of those women who've played a role in your journey.
This is really tough because I keep hearing Ashlyn and Ashley, and I'm like, hey, wait, which gotta make sure that I'm coming off mute at the right time here. I would say like one of the biggest influential women in my life was throughout this certification journey and just like my high school and getting me really plugged into my career was my freshman teacher, Mrs. Schmidt or Kathy Schmidt, Catherine Schmidt. A lot of people know her in the certification world and whatnot, but she really was that person who really embodied women empowerment and just, teaching us how to get plugged into the tech career. It was never something that, was never achievable with her. She was always like, this is how we're going to do it. What do you want to do? How do you go be the best you that you can be? Part of my story is when I first walked into that high school class that I was very timid and shy and pretty sure I was probably crying at one point on one of the first days. And Miss Schmidt really just took that and said, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? And that's, what shaped this foundation of me going down the certification path, but continuing to be the best me that I could be. And she really helped form the foundation of who I am as a person, and I'll be forever grateful for her for that.
Oh, thank you, Ashley. That's beautiful. And I hope that she's here. If Kathy's not here, we'll have to send her a little bit of some kudos a little bit later.
Yes,
Ashlyn,
I
any
texted her
thoughts
this
from
morning.
you? Yeah. Any thoughts from you, Ashlyn, about women that have been influential in your journey to pursue your technological career?
Yeah, also very similar to Ashley. I think my Microsoft class instructor from high school has been the most influential. Her name is Miss Rael. I actually got to reconnect with her last summer, which I can talk about. But yeah, so I remember like I always think about myself in freshman year of high school, and I feel like I was just a little lost, again, didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I didn't really know like how to go after opportunities because I had no sort of sensible direction. But then in this class, she kind of I feel like changed my attitude to being instead of asking like why should I do this thing, she was like why not? Like why wouldn't you do this thing? So like when I did score well in like a certification exam in class and she was like, oh, look at these championships, you know, me before without her support would have probably been like, oh, I don't really know what these are. They look kind of hard. Like, I don't know if I can do it. I'm pretty new to this space. I better just like not really, should focus on something that I'm more familiar with. But instead of having that attitude, she was like, oh, why not do it? You've done so well here. You can probably do it again. Like we have this community of people who have done it last year. Come talk to them after class. Like there's no reason not to. And I feel like that was a really important thing for me to feel so early on, because it really did change my attitude and allowed me to have a more, I guess, expansive mindset when I, go through college and also like through my future job. So she really did like change my mindset very early on. And then throughout my time in the competition, she also kind of maintained that and created a very supportive community of people to help us out. So it wasn't just like, oh, you're an individual competing in this competition and you're on your own. Good luck. Bye-bye. She was like, oh, here's all these people who can tell you some advice, and we're going to come to the competition with you, and we can all make t-shirts and like be a little, cute little team. And it was great. And I just think that like being so welcoming or feeling so welcome into that space and having someone so welcoming is very important, especially early on for someone like me who didn't really have like any foot in the tech space. So I still felt like I could with her support, whereas before I kind of felt like, by myself, but barricaded out of it. I was, barricading myself out of the space.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, whether it's, any type of student, a lot of the issue with pursuing a career in technology is the lack of familiarity with this space, right? There's just not someone that they're connected to. There's not someone that has the experience that can be able to speak to how they got to where they are. So in thinking about that, and the message that we want to share with students is that, of course, this type of career is possible. So what advice would you share, Ashlyn, we'll come to you first, for students who are looking to enter the tech workforce or get a career similar to the one that you're planning on pursuing?
I think the number one thing is just don't really be afraid to step foot into a new area, and don't tell yourself no. I mean, this is kind of classic advice, but don't tell yourself no before anybody else can tell you no. Because especially like within the tech space, I feel like a lot of times it can feel like you're very behind, because some people do get a really, really early start and they know they want to go into like computer science from the, from like high school or something. But, other people are like not really sure about that type of stuff. And so they get to this gateway where they have to make some sort of choice or decide if they want to pursue that. And they feel like it's, they're like already behind and it's not really a safe option. But I think like if you have an interest and you have a commitment to it, you can make it work out. There are always going to be resources out there. You might have to do a little extra digging to find them, and you might have to, like have a little more grit and determination maybe than someone who has like already a network of support. But regardless, it is possible. And I think if you just like, believe in yourself a little bit, you can really make anything happen for yourself that you want.
I really appreciate that, because I think a lot of students out there, you've both talked about your experience starting in high school. And I love that you've both said, when I was in high school, I didn't know that this is what I wanted to do. And I can echo a very similar sentiment. When I was in high school, I had no idea, no idea what type of career I wanted to pursue ultimately. And I think that's a very common refrain for students in high school, even students early in college, right? So this idea that technological expertise can be built kind of along the way. It's not something that you have to have mastered before you decide, like, this is a type of career that I'm interested in. And so being able to plug in and find people like you in the space or mentors in the space is something that's so crucial and important to that success. Ashley, any additional thoughts? What advice you'd share with students?
Yeah, I would echo, of course, everything that Ashlyn just shared, but I would also add, don't give up. Like if the technology world is where you want to be, regardless of when you're starting, show up for yourself and pursue that. It might not happen overnight. We know the job market is tough right now. So don't let that discourage you, and rather continue to show up, continue to network. Networking is so, 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 so incredibly important. I cannot express that enough, how important networking is. And not just like meet somebody at a conference, say hello, get their information, and then never talk to them again. Meet them at the conference and follow up the next day, then follow up 6 months later, and then follow up 6 months after that. That is so critical. I did that when I met somebody at the World Championships. She's actually the person who got me plugged in to interview for the job that I got at Microsoft. So show up for yourself, be professional, also be thoughtful and intentional, right? When I follow up with someone, I'm not just like, hey, hope you've been well, right? I'm like, hey, I remember you told me about this. Like, did that project land well? Did this happen? Did you enjoy this? Like, put in those intentional little nuggets of effort, because that's going to go a really far way. I had somebody reach out to me last week on LinkedIn, and it was a clearly templatized message that said something like request to discuss, parentheses, name, Hi, parentheses, name. I saw that you went to parentheses school. Could you please talk to me about parentheses job? And immediately I was like, you couldn't even put in the effort to fill in your template. Why would I give you that time out of my life, right? And so being thoughtful and intentional with your follow-up. It's okay to use a template, but fill it out, right? And make those little intentional nuggets of like, hey, we both went to Central, or hey, we both are interested in Moss certification, right? That goes a really long way in that networking and is going to really help you get where you want to be in the tech world and honestly any other area of the world.
Love that. So we've talked about advice for students, and I can totally echo everything both of you have shared. I want to be cognizant of the fact that most of our attendees here are educators as well, and we've touched a little bit about your experience in high school and in the classroom. What advice would you share with educators who are looking to empower the next generation of tech professionals? Ashley, we'll come to you first.
All right, there we go, off mute. Okay, so the advice or like guidance I would say for educators is be excited for them. That is something that Miss Schmidt did so well. Anybody who knows Miss Schmidt, I'm sure Hannah knows this. Anytime somebody would pass a certification exam, she would just scream. Like we had a 3-story high school. We could hear her when somebody passed an exam because she would just be like, well, like, so I'm not going to yell because you guys would, if anyone has headphones in, they would be very mad at me. But she was always encouraging us. And if we didn't pass, she was like, great, let's figure out what exactly do we need to go study? She also really focused on the impact that certification would have and the impact that taking, understanding and learning about these technological skills would have on us. In the corporate world, we say the WIFM, the what's in it for me. She really focused on that. I remember being, in my science class or my math class and being like, when am I ever going to use this? Plot twist, you do. But in the moment, you don't actually realize that. And something that Miss Schmidt did really well as my teacher was tell me when I would actually use this. And she had us do things in class that were applicable to what we were learning. Building a resume. How can you format your resume knowing the skills that you've learned in Word? Let's create a personal PowerPoint highlighting who you are in PowerPoint. It really made it something that I could understand and comprehend that what I'm learning is what is going to take me far and how I'll use it in the real world. Nobody wants to learn in school something that they think that they're never going to use. And that's always our first thought as a high schooler or middle schooler even is, I'm never going to use this. We know you will, but they don't actually see that. So we have to make that really real for them. And then just the last thing that I'll add is testimonials. The Certiport and Peer Review have a ton of testimonials on their site from people who have gone through the Moss championships and competitions. There's testimonials all over the place. And so showing those makes it really real for kids and for students. And I think that has a really easy way to show them the impact and the what's in it for them.
I'll have to drop a link here into the chat to both of your testimonials because we have both of those on our website. So good shout out. Thank you. We appreciate that. Ashlyn, any thoughts from you for advice that you'd share with our educators who are here with us?
Yeah, I think pretty much the same thing that Ashley said. I would also just like continue to emphasize how it's really important to make the whole technology space seem really approachable and just accessible to people, because that for me is like a pretty main barrier that I've seen in my own life and also other people that I know who have wanted to or have pursued tech. And just really being like the person to model the correct attitude about that, because especially as you move forward in like school and your career, I do think that the attitude of tech being kind of like a niche space or like a very protected kind of gatekept space does become a little more prevalent. So making sure that in the beginning, especially in those formative years, it is accessible to everyone and students see you having the right attitude about the space. And just like, again, showing passion, just like Ashley said, is really helpful because the students look up to you. And I know I really looked up to Miss Rael, I still do. And I feel like, again, if she hadn't had that why not attitude rather than why attitude for me, I don't know if I ever would have gotten involved in the certifications in the first place or anything in that sphere. So I think just like remembering that you are like I guess like the model for these students and their very impressionable attitudes. And you have the ability to really make everything seem more accessible and approachable to them.
I really appreciate everything that you've both shared. And we did have one question come up in the chat. If people wanted to connect with you afterwards, where's the best place for them to do that so they can get a little bit more information or more of your expertise and guidance?
I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat. It's a great way to
Fabulous.
message me. Like I said, let me know where you're coming from because I get a lot of messages and it's helpful for me to prioritize if, you're like, hey, we were on the certified webinar. I have a question about this. That's always really helpful so I can prioritize as well.
Perfect.
I can also drop my LinkedIn in the chat. Same spiel.
Amazing. Thank you. All right. Well, if we have any additional questions, feel free to drop those in. I'm just going to go through a couple different housekeeping items before we wrap up. Um, our first announcement is that the Certified Academy program is all built up so that we can all gather together in person for our annual Certified Educators Conference. This year it will be taking place in Dallas, Texas, June 16th through the 18th. So if you're looking for more conversations like this about empowering students to pursue careers in technology, we would love to have you join us for that conference. I'll go ahead and drop the link into the chat. And just give a quick shout out that early bird registration, so pricing where you get a $100 discount off your registration fee, will end here on April 1st. So if you're interested in joining, now is the time to register. Second announcement is that next month we'll be hosting a similar panel discussion talking about new ways to teach finance and accounting skills. So if you haven't registered for that session, we would encourage you to do so. I'll go ahead and drop the link to that session here as well for anyone who's interested in joining us for that one. And just in closing, I just wanted to give another big thank you to Ashlyn and Ashley for sharing their expertise with us today. We're so excited to be able to apply the skills that you've discussed and hopefully empower the next generation of tech professionals. We know that we have some incredible educators here with us who are going to be able to share everything that you've said, parrot a little bit of that expertise so that their students can hopefully get to your point someday. We're so excited to be able to see more students be successful like both of you. So thank you everyone for being here with us today. If you have any questions, any concerns for the Certiport team as well, I'll just give a quick plug to say you're more than welcome to respond to the email that we'll send out with the full recording. We're always happy and here to help. So thank you, Ashley and Ashlyn, for being here with us. Thank you, everyone. We hope to see you guys with us again next month. Thanks, everyone.